It has been said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and in the dreadful story of Little Nightmares, that is 6 times truer. There is no dialogue, no words spoken or even written, I think. I could be wrong, but there are very few games that stick with you even after the credits roll. Now I think that because there's nobody in the game telling you anything, your mind naturally tries to fill in those blanks. You begin to invest into the world and its characters. You want to know, where are we? What's going on? Why? What happened to the world? How does everything connect? And when did this all happen? Who caused it? And above all, what are we going to do about it? However, even after finding so many little pieces of world-building context clues, you will still be left with very little answers. This was an intense horror game, and chat, you guys have been asking me to cover this game on my channel for a while now, and so I want to make this a little bit more fun. If you're of age, drink every time I say the word nightmare. But if you are not of age, drink water instead. It's better for you anyways. Also, disclaimer, drinking is bad. Got your drinks? Alright. I want to take you all with me to experience Little Nightmares, first of and true to its name. Remember, this is a story explained, not a lore video. There is a difference. We'll uncover answers and share theories, and big emphasis there, this whole video is pretty much my own personal takes and theories on my adventure. As always, despite really wanting to know, I intentionally did not view anybody else's videos so as to not influence my experience, but everything I say here is just a theory. However, I hope to leave you guys with the feeling that we've played this game together, because in the end, no matter what we pretend, the journey is more important than the end or the start. So come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Welcome to
Little Nightmares.
Startled awake by a woman who sees us, our world is tilted and groaning. Water drips on metal and echoes through the cold, damp darkness. All we know is that our tiny yellow rain-coated hero is named Six. But why a number? Well, there will be stranger things for us to ponder. As she leaves the briefcase 4 times her size behind, she purges through the darkness, crawling through a vent and out onto a long stairway up to who knows where. Gargantuan chains hang heavy above, and the sheer vastness of the metal world we're in emphasizes how small we are. How children see the world in horrifyingly immense proportions to themselves. But seeing this man hanging out, Six is gonna need that chair. I will say this though, it's interesting how the furniture that the rope is attached to is elongated and bending in an unnatural way, and the guy seems to be quite tall as well. There is a letter on the floor, but we can't pick it up, so I wonder if this guy will tie into... Oh, poor choice of words there. I wonder if we're going to see a connection later on. As Six strides along, she would soon come face to face with this ink-like creature. Curious to see what would happen, she gets close to the worm and it jumps on her, constricting her to death. But she doesn't die. She simply reawakens. Interesting. Interesting enough to move on ahead and try it again, because after getting wrapped up by all of these worms, I start to ask myself, what if the reason we don't die is because this is just all a dream, a little nightmare? No, that's a bad trope. The devs wouldn't do that. They wouldn't call this just the dream. They wouldn't say this entire thing is just a dream. It doesn't make any sense. However, hopping forward, Six would open up a small vent in the wall and out would crawl a creature even smaller than she is. I wonder what that was, and where did it scurry off to? But also, what the hell is this? And who or what was in that cage that it was dragging? After avoiding the eye of Agamotto, which for some reason when it sees Six, it seems to burn darkness out of her, effectively ending her, we decide to be a kid for a minute in this bleak world. But While she was jumping on the bed, an achievement popped up saying that we would jump even higher if we knew what slept here. With that is a big nope, and we run along. Except the next area wasn't any better. We stumbled into a pitch-black room scattered with old beds and forgotten toys, and for a moment, I thought this place might have been an orphanage once, a place where children slept before it was swallowed by the nightmare. The air was heavy, silence sharp. That was until the door creaked open. The sound of slow, dragging footsteps bled into the darkness, and Six froze, hiding under the bed. Her heartbeat steadied for only a second before it began to hammer, faster and faster, echoing the terror in my own chest. The creature was making this croak-like noise, sniffing the air and breathing heavily. It was odd. But we scrambled into the next room. Only the noise of our escape betrayed us, and that thing heard us. Pressed against the wall, hidden in the corner, we had no choice but to hold our breath and hope the shadows would protect us. That's when it finally appeared beneath the faint shaft of light. The creature was tall and skeletal, wrapped in filthy bandages, or was it skin, that twisted around its head and neck. A battered fedora sat crooked on its skull, shadowing the hollow void where its face should have been. Its arms were disgustingly long, fingers spidery and almost alien, dragging across the wooden floor as if searching, head in the air, sniffing for a scent. It didn't rush. It didn't need to. Six would desperately search for a way out, and as she found a cage to climb, she could hear the monster's heavy footsteps and intense breathing. Every second it prowled was torture. And that's when I knew that in this place, monsters weren't hiding under the bed. They were the ones that owned the house. But for now, it seems to have left, meaning Six survives this time. Unfortunately, we don't get too far before she begins to double over. At first, it was just a slight stumble, but then her small frame folds inward, arms clutching her stomach as if a deep, brutal hunger was gnawing at her from the inside. A low, sickening gurgle echoing out from her belly, loud in the dead air, almost like another voice groaning for sustenance. Her heartbeat thunders in her ears, each pulse louder and faster, as if her body knows that if she doesn't eat, she's going to die here in this forsaken place. Oh, yet but still, there is no food, no scraps, nothing but cold iron and splintered wood. Starvation drags her towards the floor, and for a heartbeat it feels like death itself had taken hold. However, from beyond the iron bars, a shadow rises, concerned. A child-shaped silhouette leans into the dim light, silently tossing food through the bars. Six struggles towards it, every movement heavy, as if though she's swimming through tar. She reaches for the food, trembling fingers clutching it, and devours it in desperate bites. Survival. Death by starvation would be a nightmare. Warmth returns to her limbs, her heartbeat settles back down, and the pain in her stomach begins to fade as though death's grip has lost its hold. She wipes her mouth, turns to the shadow on the other side of the bars, and for a brief, flickering moment of childlike gratitude, she hops up and down, wordlessly thanking her silent savior as the hunger becomes just a memory, at least for now. As Six pushes deeper into this world that seems determined to crush her at every turn, she discovers a hidden room. A single button awaits there, tempting in its simplicity. She presses it, and with a grinding hum, a massive eye opens on the wall. An all-seeing eye, its unblinking gaze stretching out. One by one, the eye of Sauron blinks, revealing its gazes. Children, prisoners, curled on narrow beds with not even a blanket for warmth. Then the view shifts. Those strange white paper-like creatures, the gnomes huddled together in silence, waiting for nothing, existing without purpose. Another blink and we see him. It. A bloated figure slumped in a pantry, motionless, just standing there. But then the eyes blink again, showing us a stairwell, cloaked in crimson walls and lined with pictures. And then, the last image. A woman. She's humming softly, back turned, face obscured. She brushes her hair in front of a fractured mirror. Either the mirror broke because she's really ugly, or she smashed it because she didn't like what she saw. But what exactly did we just witness? Surveillance? Control? Secrets layered on top of secrets? What does it all mean? Well, one thing's for certain, we're about to get some answers. This is, of course, only if we don't succumb to death by hunger, because once again, Six's stomach begins to devour itself from the inside. The gnawing pain like rats in her stomach. She staggers forth through the cold metal halls until she opens into a dark room. Above, rats dangle from hooks, their lifeless bodies swaying in rhythm with the groan of the chains. The air reeks of iron and decay, and there in the center of the room sits a small cage. Inside it, a piece of raw meat, faintly glistening under the pale light. Her hunger is now unbearable. Each breath is shallow, each step trembling, approaching it. Her body no longer driven by thought, ignoring that this world is trying to kill her and that is literally a cage. She crawls inside, collapsing over the meat, sinking her fangs into it with animalistic desperation. For a fleeting moment, the hunger loosens its grip once more, but then the shadows shift above, and from the ceiling descends a familiar terror. The creature with long arms, vile hands reaching down, curling like fishhooks and closing the cage, trapping its prey. That screeching and scraping of the cage would forever pierce my mind. The boy who was in there, he didn't move or even try to get out, he just accepted his fate. Who is he, and where is that monster taking him? It didn't matter. Six, refusing to become a victim in this gray nightmare, chose to fight. From left to right, she throws her body against the metal cage, ignoring the pain in her shoulders. She bangs her frail, bony frame over and over again until it finally tips over, her knees smashing on the concrete. But pain can wait, because she doesn't know how long she has before whatever that thing is returns. The hopeless and the weak are the ones who die. Only the strong survive. But, determined to move forward, she drags a cage holding another broken soul and uses it as a makeshift platform to reach the lever and open the way out. It's just, that thing is right there, messing around with body bags. I wonder if those are corpses. Too big for kids though. However, Six really needs to move on for the sake of the story, so narrowly escaping Daddy Longarms, she crouches through a vent but then enters a room filled with shoes. Side note, a few years ago, I swear this is relevant, I was visiting Poland and went to Auschwitz because I'm really into history. But man, it was such a weird, horrible feeling, and during the tour I went into this room that was divided by glass, and on the other side of said glass there was another room filled with shoes and clothes. Those were the personal belongings of the victims, and I don't know why, but Six being in this room right now with the shoes and the briefcases just reminded me of that. But what is also unnerving is that there is something trying to get to her as she wades her way through. Is it that long arms creature? Regardless, Six thinks that she's made it out. Is that thing wearing a mask? I wonder what nightmare hides behind that mask. Taking advantage of its blindness, Six picks up an old toy and tosses it across the room. The sound clatters through the dark, causing a ruckus, and instantly the janitor jerks towards it as he scurries to investigate. Now, this distraction buys Six just enough time to climb, pulling herself up and out of the room. But escaping here isn't meant to be easy. Shuffling ahead, she uses a minecart to cross hot steam, but that's when she notices that the cart was moving left and right on its own, which made me think, we're on a ship, and the waves are swaying us side to side. Pretty soon, the janitor would find Six and be on us like a starving predator finally catching the scent of prey. He relentlessly chases Six into a room, where the gate would close but still be barely held up by a small metal cage. The janitor's arms would flail wildly about, seeking Six out, until... Comment your best joke down below. Moving into a corridor where hooks carrying body bags drift slowly overhead, we would grab onto a hook ourselves and go for a ride. Incredible grip strength, but soon Six would need to eat her third meal. But why is she always this intensely hungry, and why so often? Her palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's probably vomit on her coat already, and I'm nervous as she begins to hear the hums and chants of children ringing in her ears. There would be no help from anybody this time. No shadowy figures slipping food through bars, no bait waiting in a cage, only a rat squealing in pain. But wait, that's insane. A rat? They want us to eat a rat? The thought itself feels poisonous, something almost forbidden, like crossing a line that should never be touched. Rats are vermin, disease, filth, and yet at this moment they are Six's food. Her hunger rips and tears through all hesitation. She grabs the panicking creature and devours it raw. It's revolting, almost criminal in its wrongness, illegal, like a taboo that should never have been an option, but how else was she going to survive? The word cannibalism may not be the right word, but it's what comes to mind. It feels close, almost like an echo of it, what she's doing right now, something primal and disgusting that turns the stomach even as it saves her life. The rat's life drained, and just like that, Six's pain fades. Her heartbeat steadies. But for how long? And what if, next time, a rat isn't enough? After surviving the janitor, Six finds herself out of the frying pan and into the oven, where the stench of rotten grease thickens the air. Rushing into the kitchen, not really thinking, we meet the chef. Massive, deformed, stained aprons, and I'm certain he's wearing a mask, but what is underneath? And his attention span is short, because he saw me, chased me, watched me hide, and then started looking in a different corner, ultimately forgetting about me entirely and leaving. The whole section of this game is cat and mouse. Six slips under tables, hides above, crawls through vents, while the chef stomps around, always just a step behind. But the chef isn't alone, because soon Six would discover that there are actually two of them. Twin chefs, each with the same bloated body and disfigured mask face. They chop, grind, and boil with relentless fury, constantly hunting Six while never stopping their grotesque feast preparation. Which begs me to wonder, who are they prepping for? And how many people, if that's what we want to call them? What are they anyways? Why haven't we seen a single relatively normal human in this nightmare? Except for the tall hangman, I guess he kind of looked normal. But moving on, Six sneaks through the meat freezer, hiding in a crate, rides an elevator between floors and navigates through vents, all while evading the twins, but eventually it leads to a cinematic pursuit. Leaving the Chaos Kitchen, Six runs across a giant's pipe. The sounds of chains clanking, birds cawing, and is that daylight? Are we about to leave this nightmare? Oh my god. I knew it. We're on a ship. The ocean, the golden sun, the smell of sea salt. Wait, what is that? Another ship has drawn alongside us, but what are those hulking silhouettes crossing that gangway? Is this a cruise? They seem like they'd be into cruising. From a distance, they almost look human. Their shapes blurred against the horizon, but climbing up, the cameraman pans out and I realize that this is a weird-looking ship that Six is on, and it is vastly bigger than the ship those people arrived on. Should we even call this vessel a ship? Climbing the conveniently placed ladder and heading back in, we are now above the ship, no longer confined to the nasty lower decks, but we're about to find out that it's not exactly better up here. As the gluttonous adults waddle and file in, Six platforms upwards. But then she sees the lady, her silhouette standing above, imperious, watching everyone come into her domain. Slipping through these shoji doors, it is here that I began to notice the Japanese-inspired architecture. But then there were I don't know if we even call them adults, to be honest. I think it's just because Six is a child and every monster we face seems to naturally look older and bigger. But she begins to see these abominations feasting and consuming. They eat and eat and they don't stop, their hunger seemingly insatiable. But now at least I know, and it makes sense, who the chefs were cooking for. Actually, my wife, I love my wife, was watching me play this part, and she said that this game reminded her of Spirited Away, and for some reason that clicked with me. I really feel like there was some Spirited Away inspiration here, which I did appreciate. But coming to a dead end, Six would spot something rather peculiar. You need to zoom in on it a bit, but there's a drawing of somebody on one of the crates. It's shadowy and might even resemble a kid in a hood, and it makes me wonder if there's anything to that. But climbing onto the table and rushing past the gluttons who all rasp at Six, trying to grab her, their boorish hunger knowing no bounds, she would soon start getting chased by the very same ravenous beasts. These swollen masses of flesh, bodies barely able to hold their own weight, yet somehow, the moment Six darts across, they lunge forward with an agility that should not even be possible. They grunt and groan and wheeze like starving brain-dead zombies, and they become this wave of consumption, crashing and thrashing towards Six. They stumble and bumble over each other in blind gluttony, like pigs scrambling for scraps in a trough. But refusing to be a guest meal, Six weaves through them all and jumps across to safety, where one guest would even fall to their death. It's infinite hunger, sending it into an infinite void. I guess gluttony really is a deadly sin. But, real quickly, circling back to that chase scene, did you guys catch the painting in the background? It's a woman in a red kimono, her hand resting over the figure of a child. It's hard to shake the feeling that this is the very same lady who's been haunting us since the beginning. I think she's in charge of everything happening here. However, there's also the way that her hand hovers over the girl. It doesn't look protective, it looks possessive, controlling, ominous. And the girl looks dreadfully depressed too, almost like a warning that whatever is going on here, it all flows back to the lady. However, all that parkour has depleted all of Six's energy, so she's hungry again. Just like those guests, her stomach has turned into a bottomless pit once more, only filled with pain. What a nightmare. I imagine that she would do anything to silence it. But then something happens that changes everything. Harmless little gnome had stepped forward with a sausage offering in hand, a small act of kindness in a place where kindness should not exist. And yet Six didn't take the nourishment. She didn't even hesitate, she just shoved it aside, ignoring the food, and tore into the poor gnome instead. This was sickening. Worse than the rat, because this wasn't a vermin, this was something innocent, something that trusted and wanted to help her. It was conscious, friendly. That line that I talked about earlier, Six crossed it. It makes you wonder if hunger is even the right word anymore for her. Because if she can turn away from food and choose to consume life itself instead, then maybe what she's feeding isn't her body, but something far darker growing inside of her. Entering into a quieter part of the ship, the air feels colder here. The red walls cleaner, more intense and alarming, like we've stepped into the lady's private domain. This is what we saw through the eye a while ago. Gone are the iron prisons, the messy kitchens, and the grotesque dining halls. Instead, the corridors are lined with decor that feels elegant and refined, but suffocating, as if we're getting closer to the center of the nightmare. You can hear the lady humming. Going in to check on her to see if she's okay. Apparently, she doesn't much care for company. She uses her telekinesis to put Six back to sleep. After being chased through the dark by her, we would soon find a mirror that wasn't broken. And this is good because now that the lady knows we're here, she isn't going to let us leave. Bro, imagine dying to your own reflection. Six would regain consciousness, but it was the pain in her stomach once more that forced her up to look for food. But there was nothing for her to devour. Well, actually, there was. She was weak and lying on the floor, head hung low. Six's fifth meal. So now I'm wondering, what is Six? To be devouring other beings, but more sinisterly their essences. Is she even human? The consumption of the lady would awaken something within her. She didn't seem like a child anymore. She appeared to be more like a little nightmare. No longer needing to even touch something to feed off of it, she only needed to be near them to drain their souls, to feast off the gluttons. But was 11 born with these powers, or did she need to eat enough in order to unlock these devastating abilities? Six survived, thrived, and annihilated everybody in her path. But as the eye opens up and the light shines in, as she walks up the steps, I begin to wonder, was Six always an innocent child, forced to become a malevolent force, or was there always darkness within her? And even though Six escaped outside, she would still not be free, because now she would be stranded out at sea, still stuck on the Maw. Which I only now learned was the name of this vessel because the Steam trading card I got playing the game showed me the name, the Maw. And back down in the depths of the Maw, another child, a boy, would be waiting in the dark waters until something would reach up from below, and this place looks familiar. The kids' room that Six had to sneak through to avoid the janitor. We were back, but this time we weren't with Six. Instead, we were with this boy. Hearing the sounds of fleeting light footsteps, the boy would venture out where the booming pounds of the janitor's feet resounded through the air. He was still alive, arms intact, and chasing another poor soul. Something would drive the boy to not turn around and go back to bed. Instead, he would set out. To what end, who knows? But soon he would find himself descending deeper and deeper down, likely to the deepest depths, as now the floors he walked upon were flooded with water. I wonder what secrets the Maw has down here. Soon the boy would need to be swimming in that water. However, he wasn't alone down there, because something was snarling around him, chasing him whenever he would get in the water, and after so many platforms and puzzles, he would finally catch a glimpse of it. Rising up and out of its waterlogged chair, ready to send this nameless boy to his watery grave. I wonder what his name is, by the way. I mean, at least Six was called Six. Still don't know why she was called Six, but this boy has no name. I just keep calling him boy like I'm Kratos. Doing his absolute best to avoid capture, he would find himself being chased up a platform with a TV on it. Now, the TV had these weird triangular symbols on them, but the boy didn't pay them any mind, as he had an idea. With that water hag electrified, the boy is free from that nightmare. But climbing this ladder, when he pops up, hands would pop out from the darkness and ensnare him. All that effort for nothing, just to be locked in a cage. Except, this is where Six is. We have been playing the kid that Six watched get dragged away. But did the boy actually tuck his head into his knees and give up? He might have. The janitor did wrap him up in a body bag and sent him on a hook to where the chefs are. Actually, I just realized what the chefs were cooking, what the guests have been eating, which is why they also wanted to eat Six. The chefs have been feeding kids to everybody. I mean, I'm sure they're feeding other things, but I'm pretty sure kids are on the menu too. But where are these kids coming from? Is this what the lady has been doing, catching these kids to feed to those pigs? Well, the boy had a stroke of luck and managed to get out. Part of me thinks that Six, while she was sneaking around, distracted and caused the janitor to mess up and not properly close the bag, giving the boy enough of a chance to get out of there and get down here. Chasing the gnomes, one would get stuck in the door, so helping it and giving it a hug, we gain its trust. Working together, we would find even more gnomes, give them hugs, and enter a room with a giant furnace. Immediately, the gnomes get to work like those sprites from Spirited Away and get the furnace going, but there's just one problem. Output is low. We need more gnomes to get the inferno blazing even hotter. So we started checking the area to look for more workers. We do more puzzles and platforms, evade the janitor who won't be around much longer, find one gnome who's drawing, revealing that these gnomes are the ones making and leaving these drawings all around the maw, but then we even find that all-seeing eye, where we would see Six making her way across the sea of shoes. With all the gnomes gathered and working in tandem, the boy's able to hitch a ride up and find the gnomes' hideaway. They've been nestled here together in front of a furnace, where the firelight would gleam on them casting shadows, but if you look closely, the shadows are actually the shape of children. And I guess this is pretty obvious, but it gets me thinking, what if the gnomes are actually children who were turned into gnomes? But then does that still fit in with the theory that the guests are eating kids? Do some kids become food while others become gnomes? Why gnomes? And what is their purpose? Does the lady know that these gnomes are living here, all throughout the maw? Speaking of the lady... So, waking up in the elevator shaft, not sure if the lady knocked us out. I mean, she definitely knew we were there, but the boy just carries on. If we weren't sure then, we sure as hell are now. We gotta find a way out of this place. Crawling through a hole and landing on a pile of books, it seems like we've made our way into the residence of the lady. And on the walls were pictures of what I believe to be younger versions of her, which I think is telling. It's like having your own face as your wallpaper on your cell phone. Plus, if you remember, she spends a lot of time looking in the mirrors. Yeah, she didn't like that I said that. So, sneaking past her, looking up some answers to some puzzles, coming into a dark room that has walls with pictures of some creepy faces. I mean, again, it's weird because even in these pictures, they kind of look human, but like terrible imitations of what a human looks like. It's unnerving, it's unhinged. It's like if aliens came to Earth and were like, yeah, let's try to figure out what these humans look like, and so they like looked up a textbook or something, or like saw pictures, and then they tried to replicate that. Like they tried to make bodysuits and masks to pretend to be humans. Human mimicry for funsies. That's just what I'm thinking about right now. A nightmare, by the way. Take another drink. But moving on, the boy opens a door and steps into a dark corridor lined with strange portraits. And when you look closer, they're not faces at all. They're just warped images of flesh and eyes staring from walls. That is weird. That is some weird art to be hanging up. Using his flashlight on his Alan Wake shit, he pushes forward, burning through shadowy children that lunge at him from the dark. But then he finds her again, the lady. She was staring at herself in the mirror, but something was off. She wasn't wearing a mask this time, and so we could see what she looked like. She had this inhuman, disfigured face, but the way she was, has been, looking at and almost caressing her own face tells me that she misses what she used to look like. This time there would be no mirror, so all the kid can do is run away. Upon waking up, the boy is no longer a boy. He's a gnome. These little creatures we've been seeing all along, it confirms what I feared. The lady has been turning children into these small, helpless creatures. But the question is, why? Why not just kill them or feed them to her guests? Why force them to live this way? Maybe it's about control or cruelty. Maybe it's both and she wants to leave them wandering these halls forever. That would be a punishment that ensures nobody ever escapes her domain, not even in spirit. Because, I don't know what the time frame is, but just imagine if these gnomes were immortal. They really would be trapped here forever. Waddling on with his little feet, nowhere else to go and nothing to do anymore, he simply finds a room with other gnomes and a sausage. Pacing around, his dim fate was sealed. There would be no happy ending for him, just like there would be no happy ending for a lot of children. He tried so hard and got so far, but in the end it didn't even matter. And, unfortunately, we know what comes next. But, somewhere else, there would be a TV that turned on to static and white noise. Nothing until something, someone. A tall, dark Slenderman. So if you thought this nightmare was over, you're wrong. We still have more dreadful nightmares to experience. As the TV closes behind us, this boy with a paper bag over his head would rise. His name is Mono. Mono? Mono. Making Mono, right? Yeah, Mono. Well, cause like, in Avatar The Last Airbender, there's Momo. There's also another Momo in Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and there's also a Noko. They're all kind of spelled the same, so that's why I think it could be Mono. But I think, let's go with Mono. Mono feels right, like monotone. Let's just go with Mono. His name is Mono. Making his way through this trap-infested forest, passing by a bag of bodies who got caught, almost getting smashed by a log, and maneuvering through bear traps, he would eventually find a cabin in the woods. House? Yeah, house. Cabin in the Woods sounds better because of the movie, but this is a house, one that Mono begins to sneak through. However, he knows that somebody else is in here because he can hear music, so he tries to find out where it's coming from. That is when he finds a kid locked in a basement. She's playing with a music box and seems to be sad, only comforted by the peace her music brings. That is until she's startled by the axe Mono is using to chop through the door. This is Six, by the way. I only know Six and Mono's name because of the Steam page description for this game. Honestly, during my playthrough, I didn't know who they were, and I didn't even know this was Six until a later point in the game, which is going to be obvious when we get there, but I just noticed in the back wall it looks like Six drew somebody there and was even counting something. Does anybody know what that is? I never find out, so if you know, let me know. Now, despite Mono's slow approach in trying to befriend her, perhaps understandably, she attempts to make a break for it. I don't think that she was running from him. I believe she was locked down there and saw this as an opportunity to escape, but Mono follows her anyway. However, they would run into the dining room, which feels like something straight out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So immediately, I'm concerned about who or what placed them here, like this, and why. Maybe a family member. And also, I just realized that the kid at the table looks relatively normal sized compared to Mono or Six, but maybe I just don't understand the full story yet. Realizing that she can't make it out alone, she calls Mono over to help her pull a lever, and together they open up the attic. But the slam alerts somebody in the house. Hearing them scream, stomp, and rummage around as they looked for us was unsettling, but we needed a key to get out. A key that's up here on a hook next to bodies in a bag, except for a woman hanging in the shadows not in a bag on the right. What the hell has been going on here? Whatever residence is here is evil. After grabbing the key, the duo rush outside, but that's when they find out who the house belongs to. A hunter. And right now he's skinning something. I'd like to think it's an animal, but based on what we saw back there just now, it might be something else. Tiptoeing across, the two try their best to keep quiet, except they would end up making noise anyway. Mono and his new ally would need to weave their way through the forest while trying to avoid getting shot. The kids silently slither through tall grass, avoid his view, crawl through tunnels, work together to cross chasms, even nearly died drowning trying to get across a swamp. It's crazy, straight up evil to be hunting kids. But luckily, they pull it with a reverse part. With the tension finally gone, the duo steps out to the edge of land, on sand, and finds themselves before the sea. The fog rolls thick across the horizon, swallowing the sky and the water into the same endless gray. Gentle waves brush against the shore, each one quiet like a sigh from the world itself. For the first time, there's no danger, no pursuit, just the vast, empty ocean stretching out in every direction. It's peaceful, but also empty. After everything they've endured, this moment of calm feels like the edge of a nightmare you're not sure you're going to wake up from. But on that shore, a door, which the two would use as a raft like Leonardo da Vinci and the Titanic, to cross. But after a while being on the waters, they would begin to see debris floating, and even a TV which seemed out of place. However, the thought of how bizarre that was sunk, as the echoes of limbo stand before them. Emerging into view was this pale city looming over them, a Carcosa mayhaps. The buildings were all bending in unnatural ways, and from out here it looked like the skeleton of civilization. However, leaving the ocean behind and striding through the blue-tinged air, we would enter a decimated apartment. Hanging above on a broken TV were clothes as if somebody was wearing it and then suddenly vanished. Pressing through this desolate, ruined city, I remembered my question from earlier. What happened to this world? It wasn't just on the Maw then that death and decay lived. Entropy has seeped into everything, as if time itself gave up trying to hold the world together. Buildings stand like fossils of civilization that forgot how to dream, their shapes barely recognizable, and the weight of silence has its own gravity. This extinction-level event reminded me of Kronos: The New Dawn. Link to that video down below. And TVs. Why are TVs littered all throughout, and what is going on with this TV? Mono approaches the screen. The warbling and screeching sounds tear through the air. The frequencies begin to break him down, shadows peeling away as his body starts to disintegrate. Maybe this has to do with that post-credit scene that we saw of the TV with the tall Slenderman. However, for some reason, Mono resonates with whatever vibes this TV is sending out, and so he starts to tune into it until he really gets into it. Six pulled him out of the TV. But how did Mono even do that? Do all of these kids have powers? Thankful for the assist, he grabs her by the hand and they head further into the city to try to get some answers. But then we approach a school and this achievement pops up titled 26, saying that she hurt us. What does the 20 and 6 mean? Does anybody know? But more impending, who is she? Inside, we find a portrait of a lady with her eyes bore out. Throwing something at it reveals a torture room. Bouncing up and down together, they drop down and scurry through the school vents to come out into this dark hall. But then, they hear some bone-chilling screeching. That is a lot of neck. Moving on, I notice a wooden board oddly out of place, and I have played enough Dark Souls and Elden Ring to know that that is usually not a good sign. Unfortunately for Six, she gets captured and who knows what they're going to do with her. They dragged her off to the left, but Mono chooses to go right. Picking up a actually it's just a regular hammer for him, he uses it to crush the other kids' skulls. They're made of porcelain, I think, by the way. They aren't like real children. But it begs the question as to what exactly are these things? Do they just have the souls of kids inside of them? I am seriously hoping that one of you Little Nightmares experts can answer these questions that I have, but please wait until the end of the video because I might actually discover them myself. Also, that counted back there, so take a drink of water. Walking into a classroom, we would see a teacher moving in erratic and strange ways while the students sat attentively, until their attention turns to us and they beat us down. It's also here that I noticed that they're the same size as us, which I bring up because back at the Hunter's house we saw that one kid at the table who was significantly bigger than us, so I don't know, proportions. I am actually wondering now if this is like another game I covered called Among the Sleep, where children who are traumatized and extremely fearful have a distorted world view, where they're so young and mentally violated that their minds have no choice but to view everything as distorted, like people or adults being monsters because that's the only way that their young brains can make sense of things. Just something that came to mind. I intend to look up official stuff later. But after making it into the next room, I thought it was safe to go and grab a key, except I wasn't. That teacher came in here long neck style. I respect her neck game, but she could have just walked in here to peek around. I mean, she sped walked all the way over here, but only stretched her throat out to look for us. It didn't seem necessary. Opening a cabinet, creaking, but nobody hears or sees us peeking, we start sneaking our way out while the teacher is wigging out. And just take a look at her face. Expressionless, unblinking, her movements as her heels clack on the wooden floors are disturbingly not human. She smacks her ruler on the students' tables, getting in their faces, and it reminds me of when I was a kid and the teachers loved to assert their dominance and control over all of us just because they were adults. Not all, but many would use their age and position of authority to impose themselves on us. This section reminded me of that. It's been a while since I've been a kid, but I'll never forget how they tried to make us feel little. Exit stage left, elevator up. We would walk into this room with a feral doll kid, scrawling chalk all over the floor since he already used up the blackboard on the wall. But what he was drawing was weird. Eyes. And these reminded me of the ones back on the Maw. Coincidence? I think not. Looking closer, it is a multitude of eyes all over one another. Hundreds of eyes. We also see a drawing of a tower emitting a signal. And again, I'm thinking aliens low-key. However, it is on the very left, on the edge, where I see a man in a hat. Whatever's going on here, I think it's affecting everyone and everything, and this kid, leashed to the wall, has been going insane with it. Also, look at the hat that he's wearing. It's the same one I'm wearing. The same as the gnomes. There's gotta be something connecting everything. The lady, the Maw, the TV, the tall man, it's like all of these little clues and hints keep showing up, and we know that there's a bigger picture here, but we need more puzzle pieces to complete or see anything. Grabbing the steel pipe, smashing him on the skull, bashing through the door, making our way into the next room, we find the teacher again, who I believe is punishing a student, smacking him. Avoiding her in the library, we safely make our way to a chess room where we would see a map of the world with a giant red eye on it. Now chat, what do you guys think this means? Because to me, I'm looking at this and the first thing that pops into my head is that this is the future. We're way into the future. Some post-apocalyptic setting where we are the remnants of humanity. The world ended a long time ago. Some messed up crap happened and this is what's left. And the reason I say this is because the continents in the map are unrecognizable compared to our maps today. I'm not an astrophysicist, but I did learn on a YouTube video that continents are actually always moving. Looking it up, they creep usually around 2 to 10 centimeters per year or 1 to 4 inches in freedom units, depending on the plate. And at that rate, a continent shifting even a few hundred miles would take tens of millions of years. To crash continents together like this map shows to actually reform a new supercontinent, you would be looking at something on the order of 50 to 250 million years older than your mom, and that's enough time for me to hit 30k subs. That's enough time for mountain ranges to rise and fall again. So, if this really is Earth, it's an ancient one reborn. The oceans have lost their names, the lands have drifted back together, and the old world has been swallowed by time itself. But I know some of you sharp knives are thinking, if this world is so ancient that the continents have moved, how are there still buildings, TVs, and remnants of a relative modern life? I concur. It doesn't add up. At least not in a natural sense. But I think that's the point. The devs want this conundrum to be noticed. Here in this nightmare, entropy traps the things that we see. Everything that should have turned to dust is stuck in a state of endless deterioration. The contradiction is intentional. It's part of the supernatural decay that defines the setting we're in. At least that's what I'm thinking so far. After beating some mannequins in a kitchen and taking one's head off to wear it, Mono disguises himself to make his way through a madhouse packed with wild, shrieking children. Rambunctious, unhinged, and utterly without order. Makes me miss the gnomes a bit more. After our hammer-wielding Mono exterminates more of these pests, he finally finds 9 hanging from her feet. Releasing her, Mono and 6 can continue their journey. Dropping a piano through a floor and finding the teacher playing another one, as the two are about to leave through a vent, the teacher hears them. And my god, this was freaky. Her neck is fantastic! Finally out of her reach, and exhausting all of the neck jokes I can think of, 6 and Mono trudge through the rain and make their way across a giant chasm. It seems something caused a massive fissure that tore through the earth, but not only that, just like the warped furniture with the hangman back in the first game, the buildings here are bent and curving towards the center. But we would need to hurry on because 6 was freezing from the rain. Luckily, we would find cover and also find her iconic yellow raincoat. Now showing her true colors and gaining a stat boost to her water resistance, she won't be getting sick anytime soon. However, they would need to slog their way through the hospital anyways, where the doctor here was, well, let's just say he's not somebody insurance will cover. Discovering another TV, Mono attempts to connect and enter it once again, but when he gets close to the door, for some reason, 6 pulls him out again. I wonder why she won't let us get close to the door. Taking a look around, The hospital looks like it ran out of funding. The patients are dismembered mannequins, and all throughout this place are body parts strewn about. In fact, in one section, there's a killer hand that chases Mono around and tries to kill him, but Mono is able to beat that hand off multiple times, just to make sure it's down. Always double tap. However, 6 was doing something weird when I came back out. I don't know about you, but there was something off and weird about that behavior, man. And then, like, actually stopping to really look, to zoom in and look at the mannequin's finger, she broke the mannequin's pinky. And am I just imagining it? Or when she broke the finger, it kind of made like a weird noise? It could just be me, but what if these mannequins were humans at one point? I mean, we are living in a reality where kids can become gnomes after all, so is this theory too out of this world? If it's true, 6 doing this? Kinda dark. Should we start calling her Sadistic 6? Entering another part of the hospital, the mannequins here would try to kill Mono if he wasn't looking at them. At one point, a bunch of mannequins would try to get me through their doors and chase me down halls, and I did get frustrated here because of the mannequin that was blocking the door. I didn't know that Mono would just auto-aim at it as we walked closer to it, so I kept trying to aim at it manually, and it would throw me off because it would just cause me to die. But eventually, we make it through and into a padded room with a bathtub and shower heads. Now, this was especially weird because in the tub there seemed to be a regular body in there, and it looked organic, not plastic or whatever the mannequins are made of, but it was covered in this disgusting goop, almost like a slug. And it was in jars too. And I forgot to mention this, but there have been shadow children throughout the game. However, when Mono tries to go touch them, they just disappear with a static noise. I wanted to bring them up earlier, but I kept forgetting. I'm not sure what they are, but this one was trying to reach up into the bathtub, so I don't know if there's a connection. 360 no scope with a flashlight through the dark, we keep the mannequins at bay, and we make our way back to 6. But we aren't done with this nightmare yet. In fact, we stumbled into something even more unsettling. A room lined with rows of masks. And not just any mask, my fellow viewer. Some of them look like the very same faces of the monsters we've been running from. The chefs, the janitor. Some, I don't even think I could recognize. But all this time, I thought these creatures were wearing masks, and now here is the proof. But still, for what? Is it vanity? Is it uniform or something darker? The texture of the masks make it worse. They don't exactly look plastic, and they don't even look like clay. They look like they're made from something organic, flesh-like, thick and waxy, as if peeled from something living. Whoever or whatever these creatures are, they're hiding themselves, for sure this time, wearing humanity like a costume. But passing into the following area, we would begin to hear loud thumps. Something huge and wicked was there. Entering this room and crawling out from the shadows above, clinging to the ceiling like a Spider-Man, comes him, the Doctor. Strange. His every movement, wet and heavy, his bloated head, his pale skin, his lips stretched into a constant grimace. And now, this doctor's got 2 new patients. However, he's still operating on one as he pops his head off. Now, I actually sat here and I stared at this section for quite some time because it was weird. It was weird seeing all this blood on the floor, but not seeing any bodies. I mean, sure, he could have just carried them somewhere, but then I started replaying the part where he removes the mannequin's head. First, when he picks it up, its head kind of rolls forward on its own, and then after, its legs start kicking like it has a reflex. The body itself looks oddly normal, like a human body, and plus again, all these mannequin body parts are laying around. I don't know. I can't help but think that this doctor is changing people into mannequins. Somehow, part by part, he's replacing their flesh with plastic. Maybe with the goop back in that tub. But it's in the next room that makes me think this is actually what is going on. As he hits the lamp, the light swings and sheds lights on the bodies laying in hospital beds. The first one that he checks in on, he pulls at its head, and it stretches more like flesh instead of just popping off. Observing all of them as we try to sneak around, they look like they have skin, not complete dolls. They look amputated where the doctor inserted prosthetics in, and some of them have bandages over their heads that look a little bloody. But then, Mona would get into the morgue, where it's the nail in the coffin for me. So to speak, of course. Blood and guts in the sink, actual cadavers with those death tags on their toes. I'm sure he reanimates them and that they can feel everything, and then he just like replaces them with mannequin parts. Still not convinced? I do wonder why this particular person was kept alive like that. That doctor came rushing over here like he cared about whoever that was. But soon, he would be rushing over to Mono and Six. I just want to point out that Six ran way ahead of Mono back there, basically left him. She really said, every man for himself. But now it is time to incinerate the doctor. Is Six good? No hesitation, she sat down really close to the fire. Heat, embers, smoke, smell in her face. I mean, I know that thing was a nightmare, but she is just treating this like it's a campfire. I'm not gonna lie, that's a bit demented. She even got Mono frozen, dead hanging on the lever still because he's asking the same questions I am. Well, moving on, we don't need treatments anymore, so we leave the hospital. It does suck to be those mannequins. But back out in the torrential rain, the duo will make their way across. But then, they would start to see bodies hitting the floor. But these people didn't scream, instead they croaked. I wonder why those people were jumping off in the first place. Going up into an apartment, one of those people, well, looking at its warped face, I don't know if it's a person, but close enough, we'll stick to people. He smashes through the floor before smashing his head into a TV. Down a hall, a woman would be mesmerized by a TV. Except there's nothing on, unless she sees something we don't. I think it has something to do with this giant tower outside. Remembering the chalk drawing that the porcelain kid was scrawling on the floor, I'm looking at the skyscraper with a blasting light up top, and I am sure it's emitting a signal. And the buildings seem to open up and converge in a way towards it. But if the kid drew that tower, and it's actually here, are we going to see those thousands of eyes and also the tall man? Are this tower, the TVs around the Pale City, and the tall slender man from the first game connected? Pressing on, the two would enter a building, but it would start to collapse, sending everything careening below. However, Six would get caught, and when the rubble settles, we see that Six is stuck underneath. Luckily, me and Mono aren't the type to leave anybody behind, so we free her. It's a team effort. There is no I in team. It's not about me, it's about we. Plus, I can't open this door without her help, but let's ignore that. Also, don't watch my Kingdom Come Deliverance videos. That does not reflect who I am as a person. I help people. I would not actually do what I do in those videos. I am a team player. Heading to a kid's bedroom, we see some drawings, but one stands out to me. A man in a fedora, wearing a suit and tie. We also see those eyes. Foreboding. Heading into the living room, the entire space seems to lean towards the television. The cabinet, the shelves, they bend slightly forward, like gravity itself is being pulled by the static glow. As Mono steps closer, the light begins to warp around him. His head begins to ache, his body starts to flicker, the edges of his coat and his hands are turning translucent, as if he's fading into the screen. The hum of the TV grows louder, the air thick with distortion, and for a moment, Mono's outline ripples like he's being rewritten by the signal itself. And at first, I thought the TV was trying to lure him in like a bad way. But then I started to watch the way that Mono was attempting to enter the TV with a rather fervent vigor. He's heeding a call. But what is in the TV? What's behind the door that Mono feels pulled in to want to discover? And why does Six keep pulling us out? Her screech. That was horrendous to hear. And the tall man, oh, he's real. Immediately going after her, Mono plunges himself into the TV to try and rescue her, but there is something wrong. This time, we didn't get to go to wherever the tall man was. But also, as we were portaling, there was this giant fleshy eye watching us, reminiscent of the portraits in the lady's residence back in the Maw. I think that is what redirected Mono, preventing him from following the tall man. But why? I thought he wanted Mono. Wasn't he calling to us? Portaling through TVs, manipulating a few TV people, and even watching several stare out and fall off the building as the tower watches them. I get the feeling that's where Six is. Going through the city, these TV people kind of mirror the real world in that everybody is always staring at their phones, always in front of a screen. But not you. Not you watching this video. You're fine. Please continue. You're good to go. I mean, everybody else, of course. But on a serious note, I think the TV people melted their faces off, gluing themselves to the screens. They're almost like iPad kids, too, when they can't get screen time to watch Cocomelon. Soon, Mono would find a TV with a silhouette of Six on the screen. He tries to pull her out, but he can't yank her out as fast as she yanks us out. But it doesn't matter, because the tall man won't let her leave. Won't let us leave. The tall man, like something out of the ring, presses out of the TV and rises to lock eyes onto Mono as he tries to jack the door up. Climbing up, Slenderman in his Fallout outfit would bend down to come in after him. Trying to escape safely under the floorboards, he would find a window where he could pull planks out, but the tall man would find him and quickly begin teleporting closer and closer. But just in the time of Nick, Mono hops out the window and slides down the roof of a train. Yet the tall man is right behind him. He's on his heels, chasing him down through a car, and Mono almost died, but he was able to pull a lever to detach the cars, separating the two in an ominous way. However, the nightmare continues. As the train begins to speed ahead faster and faster, no brakes until it smashes into a wall. Last stop, Nightmare Alley. Holding the pain in his side, he follows a shade kid through the tunnel, and I begin to think, wait, what if that shadow kid is him? But like another version of him or something, because when you look closer, in the right light, as the shadow kid is about to climb the ladder, it looks like he's wearing Mono's drip. The clothes, the hat, and all the shade kids we've seen were all in places that Mono has been. Time we already know is wonky. You know what, never mind, I guess I'm just being crazy. But, climbing out onto the street, the tall man finds us again. And Mono, knowing that he can't outrun him, gives up. Except, Mono hadn't given up. Just like Six, something awakens in him, and he begins to fight back using the Force. The young Padawan force pushes the tall man back, its face now hollowed out, really looking like a Fallout ghoul now. It tries to get angles on him, but what he doesn't know is that Mono is him. Stepping into the pink light, Mono finds himself once again sprinting towards that door, only this time when it opens, he's run into a world where the rules of reality no longer apply. Objects floating all around, doors that lead him in loops, stairwells to more liminal spaces, and the only thing guiding him is the sound of music. A familiar chime, a familiar tune. But soon, he would find where the music was coming from. A box. But not just any box. Six's music box. The same one from the beginning, where we found her trapped in the hunter's basement. Here in this room full of toys and warped paintings, a monstrous Six slowly lurches forward, no longer recognizable if not for her yellow coat. She's protecting her music box. But what's turned her into this big nightmare? Was it the tall man? The flesh eyes? This dimension? Mono doesn't know. But what he does know is that somehow the music box is what's holding her here. So, he needs Six to lay it down so that he can destroy it. Picking up a hammer from her oversized briefcase that she was sleeping on when we found her first back in Little Nightmares 1, we carry it over and drop the hammer on the music box. Now this sends a shockwave that ripples in colored tones throughout the air, one that plunges Mono into a void before quickly warping him back to Six, where the dimension was beginning to collapse and melt. But that's not all, as Six, enraged by what Mono has done, screeches and begins to chase him, her overgrown frame smashing through the door frames, disfigured fingers clawing at the floor trying to grab him, her arms, legs, and bent feet twisting in painfully broken ways, thrashes ahead like a beast. This isn't the Six we're used to seeing, at least not in this abominable form. It's as if her body itself can't contain the rage consuming her. The air fills with distorted cries and raspy breaths as the world collapses around them, the nightmare reaching its final inevitable breaking point. But I wonder, does time work differently here? What if Six was stuck here for a god-awful long time? Because outside of this realm, Mono had only been gone for a short moment. However, here, it could have been ages. Plus, the influence of whatever beautifully corrupting energy is in this realm, maybe that was just enough to transform her. She grew up here from a child to a monster. Or what if she was always going to turn into that monster, even without being in this realm? Like, what if that's just what she naturally grows up to become? Just a theory. Finding her and the box once more, she one-shots Mono, sleeping him. So he would need to get creative and try to distract her and move her out of place. And after getting slapped a bunch of times, he would give it a great big chop that knocks the light out of everything. But Mono's consciousness would start fading back in slowly. Hearing the distorted music box struggling to keep its tune, he would get up and see Six, desperately still trying to protect her box. But Bro knows what must be done to save his friend, so picking up the axe, he would dragon shout a Fusuoda, making her wince, and with this opportunity, he would deliver Kingdom Come. Real quick, I want to go back in time and point something out. The music box. While we were trying to destroy it for a while, portaling through doors and trying to get her to move, if you pay attention to the handle on the music box, it's turning clockwise. But right at the very end there, before Kingdom Come Deliverance, the music box handle is turning counterclockwise, which coincides with the music now playing in reverse and with Monster 6 turning back to her normal self. That's why I have the theory that she was stuck in this dimension for a really long time. And in here, she just aged into that abomination. Gotta wonder also how that affected her already low-key on the edge demented psyche. Like, imagine just being stuck here and she probably just went insane. But okay, these flesh eyes. The last thing we have had yet to see is now finally here, and it's chasing the kids. Their eyes watching them as their grotesque flesh consumes the world around them. The whole place is alive. Every step Mono and Six take is one of desperation to escape being entombed. Now, normally, I would be worried. I would be. But I know that these two, with the power of friendship, are going to make it out of this nightmare together. Stuck in the dark and wandering around the prison realm atop pulsating flesh, Mono wonders why Six dropped him. Why did she let go? Were they not friends? Did she see Mono as weak and as somebody who would slow her down? No, that's impossible, because he freed her from the hunter. He rescued her multiple times, and there was also more than enough time for her to help him up so that they could both get out. Unless it's the same reason that Six kept pulling him out of the TV. Mono would have more than enough time to ponder these questions over and over again until it drove him mad. Because just like Gojo Satoru, he would be sealed in here, but nobody would be coming to save him. But even though Mono would become the tall man and repeat the loop, sending a version of himself out into the TV, repeating the cycle, and Six would go on to somehow end up on the Maw, these little nightmares don't end. There are still more questions, and like I said, the theories and the journeys are what make this series one of the best.